Good afternoon, everybody. So, cut your hand off, cut your foot off, and pluck your eye out. There's going to be a lot of dismembered people in heaven. So when you get there and you see people missing body parts, you know that at least they were taking sin seriously, and they took this literally, which they weren't supposed to do that. So Jesus does not mean to mutilate your bodies, but what he's saying is take sin seriously. That's really what it means. Don't mess around with sin. Don't be presumptuous. Don't think, oh, it's just a little white lie. Oh, I just had a few drinks. You know, whatever. We can easily take sin casually. And there's a mentality in our church, not just in the Catholic Church, but it's in the Protestant church, and it's been around for a long time, but it's gained steam over the last 2 or 3 decades. It's called universalism. It's this mentality, and it's not even Catholic teaching, so I don't know where it came from. It's this mentality that we're all going to go to heaven anyway. So we might as well eat, drink, and be merry, have a good time. If that is true, then you guys go home. We're not even going to do this baptism. So if you even just logically think about that for a minute, it makes no sense. Does it? I mean, why even be here? Just go have a good time and just do whatever you want. But that's where a lot of people think, well, I could do what I want to do. There was a book that came out years ago called Nobody Calls It Sin Anymore by Father Kenneth Roberts. He's deceased now. God rest his soul. But he talks about that we've become more and more lax over sin. Most couples that come to me for marriage preparation, they're all cohabitating. Now, we have kids here. I'm not going to go into it, what they do when they cohabitate. I always tell people, nothing wrong with you living together. Nothing wrong with it. It's the other stuff. And most of them I talk to, they can look me right in the eye, not bat an eye. They don't see anything wrong with that. It's sinful. Oh, come on, Father, get with the times. You're so outdated. But see, that's what the spirit of the world is Satan. I don't know if we know this, but the spirit of this world is Satan. Of course the world wants us to get up with their times. The world wants the church to conform to it, not the other way around. And if we conform to the spirit of this world, we're all going to go to Gehenna. Jesus mentions Gehenna 3 times. What's Gehenna? Hell. There was a priest. Now, there's priests that teach there's no hell. There's my former predecessor at a parish I was at in another diocese that I won't name, that you probably know, used to teach the kids. He was in this parish for 29 years, and he taught them there is no hell. No loving God would send anyone to hell. And I wanted to go up to him and say, are you serious? You're teaching this? I never said this, but this is what I was thinking. If there's no hell, then go home. You're wasting your time. Why are we trying to be holy and be good and follow Jesus, right? Because we realize we're sinful. Now, most of you here, because you're here, the fact that you're here tells me you probably take your faith pretty darn seriously. I don't want you to get a big head now, because you can come to church and not take sin seriously. There's a lot of people that come to church but don't go to confession. How often do I go to confession? That tells me how serious I take sin. St. John Paul II, when he was the Pope, and when Mother Teresa was living, St. Mother Teresa, they both used to say a good rule of thumb for confession is minimum once a month, minimum. Even if you're doing the little stuff, most of us, it's the little stuff we're doing. But those little things add up, and they weigh. That's what sin does. Think of sin like cancer. If you had cancer, if you knew you had cancer, would you just go, oh, well, it's just cancer, I'm just, We would run to the doctor like that. And sin, we have to think of sin as it's cancer to the soul. It destroys the soul and the body. I've worked with people in inner healing before whose bodies were sick, literally sick. Fibromyalgia, arthritis, lower back pain, neck pain, migraines. And a lot of that stuff has to do with unconfessed sin. They weren't taking their lifestyles seriously, and it was eating away at their bodies, because our body and our souls are one. This is why Jesus is so strong and so adamant about this message, because he loves me and he loves you. He doesn't want to see us destroy ourselves through a life of sin. He's not trying to be hard on us. I've had people tell me that before. Oh, Father Mark, you talk too much about sin. I'm just telling you what he's telling you. I'm just doing my job. Jesus talked about sin all the time because he actually cares. If I didn't care about you, if I really didn't care about you, I would just skip over this stuff. But I care about you too much. In Ezekiel chapter 30, it's in the book of Ezekiel twice. God tells the prophet Ezekiel, if you don't tell Israel their deadly sin and they die from it, I will hold you responsible for their death. A priest friend of mine told me that years ago, and that changed my whole attitude when it comes to preaching about sin and the reality of sin, which is death, hell, if we're in serious sin. I ain't going to hell for nobody. And that should be your attitude. Parents, that should be your attitude with your kids. I don't care if you don't want to go to church. We're going to church because that's the third commandment. Keep holy the Sabbath. How serious do we take the commandments? Oh, there he goes, Father Mark again, getting all fired up there. And it's because nobody talks about this stuff hardly anymore. We need to talk about it. Because that's what Jesus is saying. He's saying, do you know the consequence of sin when you don't deal with it? The consequence is hell. And guess what? Hell is forever. It's not just for a little 10-day time out in the corner. You can't have your toys. It's forever. It's forever. No going back. And that's why Jesus preaches this. Jesus' message it's a tough message sometimes. Jesus preaches tough love because he loves you and he loves me. And he doesn't want us to go to hell. That's why he says, cut it off. Whatever you're doing that's bringing you into sin, get out of it now. So what is it that God's asking you to cut yourself off from? Maybe it's a friend of yours who leads you into sin. Maybe it's a habit of yours or an addiction. Excuse me. You wouldn't believe when I hear confessions, addiction to pornography is off the charts. Off the charts. And we have it right there in our phones. That's why it's so easy. That's why I tell people when they're addicted to pornography, get filters or get rid of the stupid, do something, but get rid of it. Get rid of whatever you're looking at. What is it that causes you sin? He says, cut it off. Maybe what causes me to sin is my pride. Where's God calling me to humble myself? Maybe what causes me to sin is I've got a lot of built up anger and unforgiveness in my heart. And God's asking me, can you forgive? Can you give me that anger and let go of it because it's causing you to sin? That's what Jesus is saying. He's saying to us, you're sick. You got cancer. Go get some help. And I'm here to help you. And one of the ways he helps us is he's with us. He lives inside of us. He gives us the sacrament of confession. He gives us his body and blood, soul and divinity on our altars. He gives us spiritual direction, counseling, whatever you need to help you get out of whatever you're in that's leading you to sin. Today, Kinsley May is going to be baptized. Why do we need baptism? Because we are born into original sin. We are born into this stuff. Without baptism, we don't have the supernatural grace of God to fight against the temptations that the world throws at us. That's why this little girl needs baptism. Because if she's going to follow Jesus, which I hope she does, and her parents are going to follow him, that we need the supernatural grace of God to battle these things that we need to cut off of our lives. That's why she's being baptized, because her parents know that. They know she needs God's help, and they need help to bring her up in the faith. So what is it God's asking you to cut off? Maybe there's something you've been procrastinating about. It's maybe you're living in a sinful lifestyle, and you know it, but you're putting it off. And you're just ignoring it. What is God, where is he calling you to repent? That's what he means by cutting it off. Where is God calling you to repent? And if it's hard to turn away from that sin, beg him, Lord, it's hard to get me. That's why we have addictions, because we're so wrapped up in it. The reason we get hooked into sin is because there's pleasure in it. Or we wouldn't sin. There's pleasure in it. But he also says, yes, there's pleasure, but in the end it will destroy you. So whatever it is he's asking you to let go of, to cut yourself off from, if it's too hard for you, tell him that, Lord, it's too hard for me. I've been trying and trying. Please help me. And maybe you need to get some counseling. I send a lot of people to professional counseling to get some help with some of the stuff they're dealing with. But if you're one of those people who don't really take sin that seriously, confession is really not a part of your life, please reconsider. And know that God can call you from this world any day. He could call you from this world today. And that's what Jesus is saying. He's saying to us, I love you so much. Please don't take sin casually.